Today our guest speaker is Xia Yifan. She's now based in London. Good morning, Yifan. How are you today?
Good. I mean, it's just one of many quarantine days, and sitting in my bedroom, and I'm in Bloomsbury, so it's kind of like the central of the central London. It's really sunny days and a bit noisy outside, and we can kind of talk about that because like you still see people walking around in London, and I can understand that if people like doubt what's going on, if it is a true lockdown. But for me, I kind of like stay indoor for 10 days already.
Okay, the first thing is give us the introduction about yourself.
So as it is introduced, my name is Yifan Xia, and I'm the master student in Seoul studying religion and global politics under the Department of History, Philosophy and Religion. And I've been to UK for about 5 years now. My first 4 years in Scotland, St Andrews, studying international relations. So what else? Okay, so I've been kind of actively engaged in this pandemic, both in China and in UK. So everything kind of traced back to the end of the January or even like early December. And I've been working as volunteer since then, and still doing some information gathering, information sharing, and volunteer task at the moment.
The reason I want to interview today because I read and follow your diary every day after you post on the WeChat. I'm curiosity about the reason why you want to write a diary and how is the feedback.
Right. Well, first of all, I really appreciate that you call it a diary, because just to make a really quick clarification, it's just about like 200 word, a very small piece of writing, 2 paragraphs with a photo, something like that. But I can say that I put some efforts into that, writing from a quite honest and perspective. It is primarily inspired by my parents, because I decided to go home. Although my parents, especially my mom, is quite worried about the situation, also my health condition. So I decided to at least write something or produce something to assure them that I'm fine and happy, because I can still write and talk, and that's quite evidence. So that's really how it starts. I mean, in normal days, I barely write anything on WeChat. I just don't really like the system. But I think at the moment, everyone reads something, unless they really live under the rock. But everyone reads something, and I mean, actually, you see many misinformation like flying around and kind of misguide people. So I think, if I do it like publicly, I might I can probably help to by contributing some useful information. So
I noticed you. Yeah, I noticed you become more active than before after the pandemic outbreak.
Yeah, because I was a volunteer coordinating resources and shipment and delivery, and also on the internet, people were finding medical resources for their family or themselves, or people were asking for help for all sorts of reasons. So I try to make them public and ask people to forward them to other people who might be helpful in the case. So I guess there's two. One is a platform for news and information, and another platform for mutual help. But when Europe became an epicenter of the pandemic, because most of the readers in WeChat are in either China or mostly in the States. So I kind of just introduce them what's going on here, and just basically like say hi by writing. Yeah.
I have noticed some argument and articles in some newspaper, particularly in the Western country. It argues that the Chinese people should be responsible for the pandemic outbreak. And I'm wondering, what's your opinion?
Well, thanks for asking, because it's an extremely important issue that deserves much more attention than it has at the moment. It's very complicated. One is that Chinese government definitely should be responsible too. I have to say that although I blame the government a lot, and I got very furious about the government a lot, but I think the West is still playing a blaming game. One is that I know how unfair it might sound, but the Chinese government is more honest to the international organization and to other countries than it is to its own people. The government actually notified the WHO, and I read an article from I think it's Washington Post saying that the director of the disease center in China actually called the director, his American counterpart, in late December. By the way, that scientist is Oxford educated, so it's not like every Chinese doctor is stupid and blind. And then there's a rumor like this, and we get no one in China dealing with a situation that's wrong. Okay, so one is that there are early warnings, constant warnings, and public warnings that's completely accessible to the West in January. That's one thing. Also, you get comments from scientists praising that China actually improves a lot in this transparency in science compared to the SARS. For example, you get this, I'm not the expert here, so we might get wrong, but this is like the RNA, kind of biological structure of this virus. It's an article published in the journal in January. So that's all accessible, okay? Like publicly, there's warning, privately, there's warning. If the West say, well, fine, it's just really, the payback of the Chinese dictatorship. That's very biased, but let's leave it there. Then the world witnessed the very disastrous situation in China in February and the first half of March. People are dying, and it just basically showing you how bad it can be, but there's no preparation, at least no full preparation made. I would say that not really only, but one West state that kind of makes some preparation is Germany, and you see how Germany does. Like they kind of did a relatively good job. So I think it's unfair to say that we should blame them all, because if you read all the statistics, if you read every situation via ideological perspective, you will get it wrong. For example, now you get statistics, and the states start to lift the lockdown. Yeah. So I think it's very unfair. Secondly, very briefly, is that people who make such comments don't differentiate Chinese government and Chinese people. So they think the Chinese people represent Chinese government, and Chinese government is to them evil. So the Chinese people are naturally evil, and it justifies racism and discrimination. I have to say, I mean, in UK at a very early stage, Chinese people, or like Chinese-like people, because they don't really tell like, oh, that's East Asian, Chinese, Japanese, Korean. They don't know. Also like British Chinese, it's very diverse identity. Basically, Asian people were discriminated because of wearing masks, and that's very stupid, because now finally, for example, the states saying that, oh, you should wear a mask, we should make it a policy, right? Yeah. But it takes so long time, and the hurt is made, and the races and racism and xenophobia will be lasting impacts of this pandemic, and that's also very dangerous, especially with the help of all these articles playing blaming games. It will be we'll probably see a better time when everything's finished, but for some people like Chinese, they wouldn't necessarily see a better time at that point.
I really appreciate what you do over the past 3 months, not only for contribute to the community, but also do the information sharing and write a diary and post on Facebook and share the information with people who may be not available with the social media and who cannot read English. And just one question about, do you think we still can go back to normal after pandemic outbreak?
I mean, surely I'm not the person who can say any definite draw any definite comments on this topic, but at least from the daily press conference, Chris Whitty or Sir Patrick Vallance, both of them say that we should not think about it, the exit strategy at this stage. We couldn't tell because it entirely depends on how people behave. See, I can't even tell you the quote because they can repeat it so many times, from the beginning to the end, as we rely on science and it depends on you. Stay at home, protect lives, and save energy. Things like that, save life, protect energy. But I guess for the experiences, I think in China, if we look at, for example, self-discipline, we could probably talk about that later as well. There's this culture thing, strongly contradict with lockdown things, and you read articles all the time that there's this complaining that it's just inhumane to do that, something like that. Also,
because the Asian people get used to the collective behaviors, and they were more self-disciplined than the Western people.
Yeah, I think that would be a reason, because I guess collectivism, well, I guess it's in English, if you say collectivism, it means many things. But I think here we're talking about that people are willing to sacrifice something for collective good, and they have more trust in government. Because in the UK, people tend to question the government in the first place, which is a good thing in a normal life. But if it's a wartime situation, and if you keep questioning without any obedience, that would be a bit concerning. For me, I don't think there is normality. I don't think there are normal status. If you're talking about talk to people face to face, well, obviously, I think we will get back to that level of normal life. But if we're talking about, for example, what will NHS look like after the pandemic, or would we talk about the living environment for Chinese in UK or in certain states in the US? I'm not very positive on that. I think it will bring us into some new situation that we have to deal with for a relatively long time, longer than the pandemic. Your life, your family life, your friends' life, your beloved lives are most important. So take care, and see you in a better time.
Yeah, we will see each other again. Thank you, Yifan.
Yeah.